And Char too. Hello. Okay, so welcome everyone. For those that are new, my name is Anita Thompson. I own Art Venture Workshops. I'm a mobile-based artist that I travel mostly to libraries, but I do other venues as well. I do Autism Cares Foundation, which is part of my heart for sure, and an adult art class at a rec center and some other places. But I must say, libraries are definitely one of my favorite places. It's where I started. And it's so good to see all of you. I can't believe I was looking, I'm working on the fall programs right now. And I have seen some of you, I think, for about 7 years at this point. It's
Wow. Yeah.
amazing. Thank you. I just wanted to thank you for that because I can't believe 7 years have gone by like that.
Jeez.
And this was something that I thought, let me give it a try. I never taught before.
That's cool.
Yeah, so I feel like this is like my second act.
All right.
Yeah, and I'm here for it. Okay, so we have the lovely Ladybug for this evening. Um, so we are going to be painting this on a 5x7, a small canvas here. I'm going to go in a little closer. If anybody needs to, you know what, I'm going to hold this up close in case anybody needs to take a picture. Um, that is our ladybug. And I've seen a few of these. I've seen a few ladybugs lately. Between the ladybugs and the fireflies are out. I'm so excited. Or lightning bugs,
Ooh.
whichever, however you say them. I kind of go between both ladybug or fireflies and um, and a friend of mine calls them glow bugs, which I think is really funny. I was like, they do glow. They are glow bugs. Um, Anyway, let's start with our ladybug here. So what we're going to do first is we're actually going to start with the leaf. And so our leaf is going to be, oh, and I forgot to mention for those that are newer, we do record this. I will send this out to Sabrina, the adult services librarian at Warminster Library, and she will get that out to you in the next few days. It will be posted on my YouTube channel, and I will also put my YouTube channel in
Leonard.
the chat afterward. So, okay. But you do need the link at first because it will be hidden on my channel for about a month. I'm actually going to be releasing a few tomorrow. So, that were hidden.
Ah.
Yeah. Yes. And I'm releasing some from some of the like from 2020 and 2022. I have ones that have been sort of sitting and I have to clean them up before I kind of release them. So I've been doing that slowly. So you're going to see some new ones. Well, not new ones, but ones from the past up on the YouTube, on the old YouTube channel.
Cool.
So we're drawing the leaf right now. Basically, I just want to kind of get the shape, the total shape, and then we can go back and kind of make it a little more scalloped on the edges. But I'm going to go in a little closer as well. I don't think you really need to see my paint palette right now. Not yet. And I feel like this is a pretty simple one in the sense of, the colors are pretty simple. Um, I think the drawing isn't too bad either. It's mostly shapes, but you will be the judge. So,
Finally.
exactly, I know. My adult art class on Tuesdays makes fun of me a lot because one of the infamous things I say is, this is an easy one.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yes, we know. I get it.
oh, so funny. So we've got a cylinder for our ladybug here. And it's not quite a circle, not quite an oval. It's sort of in between. And so I have drawn that on top of the leaf. You can still see the leaf here. And the funny thing is, if it matches with your leaf, like I have to draw my leaf a little bit, I'm going to draw mine just a little bit bigger here. But if I leave it, it'll actually match up with the middle of the ladybug of where the back of her kind of splits. And I didn't mean to draw that all the way up at the top because we need to get her head in there too. So what I did was I made the leaf a little bit more, a little higher up there because I didn't really want it to be right in line with the middle of the ladybug. And then her head is kind of comes right off of the back of her. And we'll kind of do a shape like this. And you notice that you have to kind of erase the things inside that no longer make sense. And now I'm drawing the top part of her head here. And I'll let everybody catch up. You know, before I hopped online, my husband Chris told me that we're supposed to get more storms tonight. He said, "Oh, I hope you don't get kicked offline." And I said, "Don't say it." It's never happened to me yet. I don't think it's supposed to be as bad as it was. So I'm just kind of cleaning up the shape here of the top of her head. And then I'm going to draw in some of those white dots. I'm going to make this darker so you can see it on Zoom. I'm realizing it's a little bit light. And I add her antenna later on. So I'm not going to draw those in for now. And then I am going to draw in the black dots on the back of her here. Now you're welcome to add more dots if you like. I also don't draw her legs. We will do that afterward, after we do the leaf. And I'm going to then draw the middle part of the leaf right at the top of her head, and then comes out at the bottom. So that's that line here and here. And let me draw this a little better so that you can see that this leaf is kind of turned over on its side. Or not on its side, but it's like flipped a little bit. So you see the under portion of that leaf right there. I'm going to go a little closer now. It's so little. I'm thinking I can do it like I don't know. I think I still like it next to each other. I tried, but I thought, I think I do like it next to each other. Like so. Okay. And then the last part is we want to kind of scallop the edge of the leaf, like I mentioned. So here, just kind of going here and kind of making it a little more bumpy. And then obviously erasing the straightish line that it was. And the same, on the other part of the leaf on the other side on the left. I'm going to draw the tip of my leaf a little bit lower down. There we go. Okay. And now we have the blades of grass. And then we get to start painting. So we have the blades of grass. I actually sort of sketched in some of these on the left. But if you wanted to wait until because we're going to be painting the background, you don't have to sketch them in. You could wait until we actually, paint the background, but it's up to you. I like to kind of have an idea about where my blades of grass are going. There's, a really thick blade here coming up and over. Also kind of twisting around there. Again, I'm going to make that darker. And so the way it twists around, it's sort of a squarish shape here. And then you see the underside, which is here. And we have one more thick one going up the right side of our painting here. Just a little bit of it, just to give it sort of a nice composition. And we have obviously a few more pieces on the left side. We have a sort of a bigger shape here. So we're going to be drawing over some of the shapes, but the first shape is there is a big one over here toward the left top corner. We have one coming around from the left side, and it's going across over the one we just drew. And so what I'm doing is I'm kind of showing you, how I actually composed this. I started drawing, grasses, and then I would, erase the lines. Again, that no longer made sense because I made one in front of one. And then we have one back here. If you're ever thinking about drawing grasses on something, it's okay to draw on top of your other lines as long as you're doing it lightly and, you're still trying to figure things out. And then we have another one right here. And then we have some that are in the background and in the bottom left corner that I actually just didn't really draw in. I kind of just painted those in by hand. But these are the main ones that I really wanted to make sure they kind of got into the picture. I felt like it gave it some balance. I'm going to let everybody get caught up. And then we're going to start painting. Make these darker so you can see. And again, feel free to, add more grasses along the way after we start painting, or unless you want to draw them in now. But the first color we're actually going to do is going to be the blue. And I've mentioned, so it's like a pool blue. I'm just going to kind of show the colors here. It's a bit of a lighter blue. If you don't have a lighter blue, you can just use blue mixed with some white, or you can make your sky a little darker. That's okay too. I have a dark green, or like a grass green, I guess. And somebody's joining. Red, yellow, black, and white. And what I like to do at first is use the round brush, because we're going to start with the background. Hello, welcome.
You got this. It's just an accident. I'm scared.
Hello.
Hello. I'm just going to mute just because we're recording, and I'm just going to recopy the information in the chat for you. We're recording, and you'll get the recording in a few days. Well, obviously after it's completed. But we're going to start off with our blue, and I'm going to use the round brush in order to kind of sketch in where my grasses are, so that I can then fill in the sky behind. So it's sort of like I'm kind of outlining where the sky is. Basically outlining the grasses for the most part. And the leaf there. I like these smaller paintings. I'm curious what all of you think about the smaller paintings. I'm working on the fall right now. Sounds so funny, right? We're in summer, and I'm always at least a season ahead. But from what I gather, people enjoy these smaller paintings because we can get more detail. They're smaller. It's kind of nice. Especially if you have quite a collection of paintings at this point. It's nice to have smaller stuff. So I'm outlining, each of the elements here, but that doesn't mean I can't go back later on and add more grasses. But just take your time. And outline as much as you can. You can also add sort of some cloud, a little bit of clouds if you wanted to. I did not add that in the original, but might be fun to have it be a little bit, showing a little bit of some tiny clouds in the background. Just taking our time here, outlining the elements, and then we can fill in the blue, the blue sky. So I like to kind of continue with my round brush since it is a small painting. But whatever you feel more comfortable with. I do use mostly the blue, but I'm going to add a little bit of white to certain parts of it to make it a little bit lighter, mostly at the top part of painting. But first, filling it in with the blue. Okay. So the other thing that I sometimes do, especially as I'm painting, I kind of rotate my canvas around so that I can get to other spots a little easier. It also will help you sometimes notice the spots that you still have to get to. And that's a good tip when you're trying to copy something, like if you're drawing something, maybe like a photograph or something in a photograph. If you can't figure out why your drawing doesn't look like, how you want it, after a while, flip your drawing upside down, and it forces your brain to actually look at the shapes and identify them as shapes rather than, say if you're drawing somebody's portrait or, something like that. And then what it also forces you to do is you can usually start to see some of your, maybe some of your lines that are not quite where you want them a little easier. So just a tip if you're, when you're drawing something next time and you're frustrated because you can't figure out why this person's nose doesn't look the way it does or something, flip it over or, upside down and then take a look at it and look at the shapes. And it's very helpful to do that. That was something I learned in art school. I'd make a mistake and for like an hour trying to fix this one thing. And I remember doing this in class one time, and one of my teachers said, "Don't you know the upside down trick?" And they showed it to me, and I've never forgotten it, and it's very helpful. So I hope it helps you. So now I'm just kind of going back in and making sure that I have the sky pretty much covered, and flip it back over. And this is where I'm going to add a little bit of some light blue. by mixing a little white. And I'm going to add that to some of the top parts of the sky. It's a little too light, so I'm going to go back in the blue. I just like to give it a little bit of some depth. Just adding another bit of the blue, a little bit lighter. You don't have to if you don't want to. Pretty much do just patches of it. Let me move my light source so that you can see it looks a little too shiny. There we go. But you just want to make sure that you have sort of every spot covered with the sky. And our next one is going to be the greenery. And as we're doing the green, so the green, we're basically going to be using three colors. The green, right, the grass green, the yellow, and the white. And so I start off really with the green as a base, and then I paint my other colors into it. So for instance, I'm going to start off with the leaf. And so I'm using my flat brush, and I'm just going to paint in regular green. I am going to outline, you know, around where the ladybug is laying there. So if you feel better, again, using your round brush, you can switch to that. I do switching at this stage, but I like to use my flat brush on the larger areas right now. And I'm just getting a base of a green. And again, this is with the regular green or grass green. You know, and again, we're just going to take our time in um, how we kind of outline it in the paint. I'm going to switch to my round brush. so that I can do a little bit better of some outlining where it's scalloped. And now I'm going to go up above to get the pointy part of the leaf here. So we're going to concentrate on this leafy part first. Once you have the base covered, and I'll give everybody more time. I'm just kind of showing you the second color that I'm mixing is going to be white and green. So we have our base color of the regular green, and then you're going to mix a little bit of a white with green to get more of a lighter green. And I sort of paint this as a almost like the opposite. So we started off with the darker color, and then we're going to paint the lighter areas. But so I take this light green and I start to kind of fill in around, on the base of the leaf to make it now lighter. And I do this while the paint is wet. And the reason is because I can get a nice gradient in the sense of, mixing up some light and medium and kind of the dark green. But I can take each section of the leaf and sort of add in the lighter parts and then kind of leave space for the darker outlines. And then I go back in and I repaint the darker areas again while it's wet. So for instance, making those curved green veins in the leaf. I can do that right on top while it's still wet, and also the shadow underneath our ladybug. I can smooth it out into the leaf, and it'll then be darker as it's closer to the ladybug, but then the shadow will be lighter as it gets out and you spread it out onto the leaf. And it makes it look a little more realistic. And then I like to go in on each section of the leaf where it's separated by the dark area, like a dark line, and then the regular leaf. And I go in and I lighten up a little bit of the section by adding just a tiny bit of white. In between those lines. Usually closer to where the shadow is. So I'm kind of demonstrating that now. I'm going to add a little bit of some white paint here. Then I'm going to mix it in a little bit. And this is all while your paint is wet. And you can also add some yellow to this too. I kind of quickly add these colors in as the paint is still wet, and then I blend it with my brush. If you feel like it's drying on you already, you can use a tiny bit of water on your brush, or you can, add a little more paint. That's the great thing about acrylics is you can kind of re-wet them. Some more shadowing here. And the underside of the leaf is dark, so that's the green. And then on top, this is toward the edge here, the tip. I use the light green for the surface. So see as it's, kind of bending, you can see the underside that is darker. This part that is lighter. You can even add a little bit of black to your green underneath so that that shadow is very dark. So it would be like a dark, sort of dark blackish green. So what I did was I added a little bit of black and mixed it with my green, and you get like a dark forest green. And you can use that for the darks on the rest of the grasses as well, which we will be doing. But I started off with using it here, under here, and I'm gonna show that up close so that you can see. So that's that dark green right there that I used black and green. And I'm gonna, sometimes add it right underneath where my ladybug is to outline her as well. Seeing gives it a nice shadow. I'm gonna do it on the edges as well. So again, that's black and green. And you get like a dark, I call it like a forest green. And I use it for the darkest part on on the green leaves, on the green stems, the grass, but very subtly, so that it doesn't look like an outline. So for instance, on the leaf part where, it's kind of jagged, I add a little bit of black on either side of the point of the jagged part. Do that a little better. And paint is a little bit dry. There we go. And to kind of blend it a little bit with the paint that's already on there, you can kind of lightly brush over with your paintbrush, like a very light application. And basically the shadow, it would be the darkest underneath the ladybug. And then, in those little veins of, on the leaf, it would be a little bit dark starting off toward the ladybug, but then it gets a little lighter as it gets into the leaf. So I just used a tiny bit of that black and green to go here on the starts, the vein of each vein of the leaf. So basically we do the greenery first, which is going to also, we can now start with, the grass is basically going to be the same thing. So for the grass, I actually did a little bit of the opposite. So I started off with the dark on the leaf, but now for the grass and, kind of like the stalks and stuff, I actually start off with a lighter green. So now I'm going to mix yellow and green together. So I'm actually doing the opposite for this one. I'm going from light to dark instead of dark to light. So I'm mixing kind of like a lemony green. So with the green and a little bit of yellow. And then I'm going to paint the base. I like to start off on the left here with the big grass behind here. And so I outline it. Again, this is like a light green that I've made using the green and the yellow. And I'm starting off with the first kind of stalk here. And just take your time as you are painting, as you're kind of outlining. Now you can either do all of the stalks using this light green as sort of a base color. I'm going to do that in the background of the first ones here. Or you can work on each individually. I work sort of fast with the grass, so I kind of put a base color down, which is the yellowy green, the lemony green. And then since I'm still going to work with it as it's wet, I'm sort of okay with doing that, but you don't have to. You can do each one individually. And basically, we start off light and we get darker by adding more of the green. And then eventually, the blackish green. And again, the brush just depends on, your comfort level. I use a lot of the round brush in this, meaning, my smaller detail brush. I did use my flat brush, but I kind of have it for doing longer sweeps of color. So with the grasses, once I sort of start to fill in and I have the base color down, I like to go back in with my flat brush. But again, you can just use the round brush as well. It's all what you feel more comfortable with. So again, I'm just going to giving each blade of grass kind of a light green base. Knowing that I'm going to go back in with dark and even adding some white. Basically with the blades of grass, it's darker on the edges of each side and then lighter in the middle. Like I'll kind of show this as, so it's darker along the edge and then it gets lighter. So we add more yellow. And the darkest parts is where we add that blackish green. But for right now, I'm still kind of adding the base color of the lemony green. So it'll look kind of unfinished, with the base color. That's okay. And, I still want to add more grasses on that bottom left corner once we complete the other, have them completed. Just realized there's a spot where I have to fill in the sky. I thought it was grass. I'm realizing, no, that's a chunk of sky. So I'm gonna go fill that in. So since that base color, I'm now going to switch over to my flat brush. Have a base color here of the lemony green. And I'm now going to grab some of the regular green and load the tip of my brush with that. So here again, if you want to use your round brush, it's a little easier because I'm gonna use my brush to the side so that I can sort of outline a little bit with it along the edge of the dark area. So this part, this stem here is darker. And so I'm using that dark green along the edge. So I'm kind of outlining on each side. So I might mix a little bit of the black in with the green. So it's going to look really dark. So that's my black and green. First, I just took the green and then I thought, you know what? Let's go in with the black and green. Let's go from really dark to light, going from right to left of the stalk. I even like to outline each of the grasses very lightly using that blackish green. So each side I like to kind of outline and then go back in with the lighter greens. So let's do that now. And it doesn't have to be perfect right now as far as you obviously have to get it on the grass line, but it doesn't have to look amazing yet because we're going to be layering our colors in order for them to blend in the middle. So again, what I'm doing right now is I'm taking the dark green, which I've made with the black and the green. I'm outlining each side of the grass with that color. And you can outline on the actual grass, like so that the grass, on the line so that it doesn't get so thick that it's not a blade of grass anymore. You can kind of go on the inside of the line. So remember, if it starts to get where your brush, the paint is kind of not flowing on your brush, you can add a little bit of water to the tip of the brush and then use the brush as almost like a pencil, very lightly, so that the tip, as it's sweeping across the canvas, is just lightly sweeping across. And then your next step with the greens is, this is where you get to have fun with the grass, in that you then add a medium shade, which would be, and I'm doing that with this one here. I'm going to go in really close now. And I'm doing this blade of grass right here, the one that is in the back. And so I just added some medium green, which is basically like the grass green. And then I added just a tiny bit of yellow. And then I'm going to add some white, but I'm not going to add it directly to the canvas yet. I'm going to make another lighter color right here. And then sweep that through very lightly to the left side and leave the dark area on the right side of the grass. So your paint still has to be wet. So if it's not wet, you want to, add more paint, maybe a little bit of water, and you want to blend it. And so at this stage, you're going to finish off each piece of grass. And you can make it a little bit lighter to the left side of the piece of grass by adding a bit of white and then blending it into the wet paint. But staying towards the left side or going a little towards the middle of the blade of grass. But you really want, that one side to be darker, meaning the right side. And you're basically going to do each blade of grass like that. You can make some blades of grass a little bit lighter even by, adding more white or more yellow. Again, it's best to have it done while the paint is wet so that you can get sort of a blending. And if you add a little bit of water to your brush, the paint will slide a little more. White to this one. The other ones now. Again, green and yellow. And so sometimes it may seem like you're repainting the grass because we kind of did a base color, and we sort of are. But that darker color underneath, we want that to, shine through a little more as a base. So that's why I had you do it at first. And remember that medium green you can use in the middle, being, if it's mixed with some yellow, or maybe you're green is a little bit darker and it's just the grass green, but you should have a little bit of some kind of yellowing in the center of your blade of grass. And then a touch of white would be even better after adding the yellow. And you may have to work each blade of grass once or twice in order to get it to look a little more blended. And I am layering in a little bit of white in my already wet paint. And also you can go back and use that really dark color again if you need it. Yellow to the center. Sometimes I like to go back and add much more yellow than I had before, but I make sure that the paint is wet so that it kind of glides inside that color. I would say the grass is probably the most complex. We're going to get to Miss Ladybug soon, and she's pretty straightforward. This is also the stage where you can decide you want to add more grass, or you can wait until we do the ladybug. You can even add some grass, you know, some pieces maybe like slightly on top of her, in front of her. I'm painting some more in over here on the right, just using some strokes. Then our next level is painting the red on our ladybug's back. And the same thing, I use like the basic red, but then I mix a little red and black along the edges to make it a little bit darker, but I'll show you that. But first, when you're ready, you can paint her red. And so here again, the lighter parts of her shell would be towards the middle areas, and the darker part would be along the edge. So again, you would mix the black and red to get a darker red, and then white and red to get more of a pink for the lighter areas in her shell. But first, I do a base of the red. And here's where you're going to take your time, since we've already painted the leaf. You're going to slow down and just take your time as you fill in her color. And I like to go light first. Sort of add a little bit of, it's a little too pink. But I like to add a little bit of some lighter red. In between each of the dots. The lightest part being where her back is. And then kind of leaving the regular red around the surface. I'm almost like an outline around each of the dots. And you can make a kind of like a brick red or a dark red using a little bit of black and red. And that can be where you first go in the middle of her two, separating wings here as a sort of like a shadow. And the same along the edge of her to kind of outline. Again, this is black and red. Very lightly sweeping it into my already wet red. I'm going to do it all around her shell. Along the edges, because they would be a little bit in shadow. And our second to our last part would be, we're now starting to add black to her dots and her head. Well, I like to kind of outline the dots on her head first in black, because those are going to be like a white and a sort of like a grayish on one side with a little bit of yellow. And her separations are going to be a grayish as well. So first do them a black. And then the middle sections are a little bit of a, it's still black, but like there's a little bit of gray, like a really dark grayish black. We're all concentrating so much, including me. Remember the line on her back? It's actually not a line, it's the separation of her wings. And so I actually like to do those a reddish black. So it's actually the darker red with a little bit of black. Since there is an opening. So again, I add a little bit of gray to her head in the sense of, so the shapes, basically, she has the top kind of dome-like area here at the top. I'm gonna kind of paint that so that you can see it. And then the other shape is a little more a like an ovalish. She has her white dots with just a tiny bit of yellow and black mixed in. It's going to sound really strange, but it's just kind of a little bit of a shadow on the left side. I'm just going to show that. Oops. So that looks like sort of a grayish. And there's a little bit of yellow there inside each of the dots. And we can't forget her little legs. And again, this is just using the black. And she has two antennae. Now, if you feel like you can't do the antenna using a paintbrush, what you could do is when this dries, you could use a very thin Sharpie. Like a very fine point Sharpie if you have it. Or you can use a Sharpie. I think a Sharpie might work too. I'll give everyone a few more minutes and I can't wait to see what these look like. Just gonna wash off my brushes here. Give everybody another minute. I'm going to remove my spotlight and stop the recording. Let's see, where's the recording here?